Stranger Things is officially over, and man, am I a wreck of a mess. I got goosebumps. I got emotional throughout this entire thing, and the right side up actually came through. What's going on, everybody? We are talking Stranger Things, full spoilers. This is going to be my reaction and review to the finale for Stranger Things as a whole, but also just specifically season 5 as a review. Now, if you watched my volume 2 review, you knew that I was a little underwhelmed with what had happened. And going into the finale, I was very hesitant to how this was going to be pulled off. And I will immensely say the finale is excellent. It is amazing. I loved it. I still have some small nitpicks, but I would say as an overall finale to this entire show, this is as perfect as it gets. And I very much loved it all to every sort of degree, even right down to the ending of the show, which I'm very curious because, again, I haven't talked to anyone other than my wife who also enjoyed this. So I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. So please leave those down there. If you disagree with me, that's awesome. If you agree with me, even better. If you loved it even more than me, awesome. Make sure to hit that like button too, and also subscribe because we do have a couple more Stranger Things videos coming up over the next couple of days. We're going to be ranking each season, so on and so forth. But with that said, this finale, as just a reaction, I loved it. I love how the tone of this felt. It was so much better in terms of its tonal that I felt was better than volume 2 and even volume 1. Like, this was the Stranger Things that I've been really craving since Stranger Things season 4, which for me, I go back and forth if it is my favorite season, but I really loved how cinematic and big and the stakes were so high in that season, specifically in season 5. Really much, for the most part, I don't think dwindled to that, but I think the finale actually brought it right back around there. And for me, I just found myself in everlasting love with this episode, with so many different things that happen in here, which I'm absolutely going to miss something. But I think the first thing I want to talk about is the deaths. So there was a lot of fake out deaths. And I think in terms of nitpicks, that was one of the little nitpicks I had, was like the Steve Harrington thing. I was like, damn, the Duffers are going to do this. And then it didn't. And part of me wishes they would have gone ballsy with it. But at the same time, when I get down to the epilogue and just seeing where all the characters ended up, I did feel a little bit better that they kept Steve alive. But that moment, my heart stopped. My heart stopped for a second. I'm not going to lie. I thought, shit, they actually fucking did it. But they do this quite a few times throughout the episode, specifically like Hopper shooting Eleven. Kali, obviously, she died. She's dead. Number 8 died. We knew that was going to happen. And that for me was like, okay, like, I think that was the most predicted one. I thought for a second Murray was going to die. The bald eagle didn't die. You can go down the list. Dustin, Nancy. I mean, I think almost every single character had like a near-death experience for the most part. And I don't wish they would have done that. I wish there was a little bit heavier of stakes, but whatever. Again, the epilogue kind of made up for all that. The thing that really surprised me was 11. And I really want to start off with the fate of 11 here, because I think this whole season built up to the only way, and a lot of people have said this, I'm not going to take credit for it, is the only way that they can make everything right side up is if the one person that made everything go upside down perished. And that is 11. And I personally wanted 11 and Mike to have their happy ending. In general, I just wanted 11 to have a happy ending. And what I really love about this, and I was very, very worried that they were going to do this in the finale, was that 11 was going to fake die, and then we were going to see an Ego show up or some little thing that just showcases the Mike that she is out there and alive. Now, Mike has this very interesting monologue towards the very end where he says and gives this whole story about the mage and says, I believe. And the rest of the kids say, I believe. And I think as fans, that is awesome. I really like that because it does add to that discussion for friends, family, everyone, and just fans in general of the show to have that discussion. I want to ask you guys down below, do you believe that 11 made it out? For me, I am a little bit pessimistic for it, but the optimistic side of me does want to say that I believe as well. I believe she got her happy ending. And if she did, I'm very, very happy for her. Obviously, that's up for the writers. That's up for us to discuss. But I really thoroughly love that that was like that lingering thread, but it wasn't an annoying one to me. And I like how they had it there. On top of that, I mean, just the entire final sequence between her and Mike, which I think some of the line delivery wasn't the best, it still got me pretty emotionally invested because I have always liked Mike and Eleven, especially like after binging, going back through and rewatching like season 1 and 2 and just like seeing their dynamic and relationship. It really was pretty damn special. And I overall just genuinely loved how they were able to flesh this out, bring it all to life, and everything to that nature. Which leads me into the other thing I really want to talk about is holy fuck the Mind Flare. He looked awesome. The visual effects were amazing. I loved everything they did in Dimension X. I thought that was freaking phenomenal. And I think the thing I really loved was that while we can feel bad for Vecna to a certain degree, I love that he did not turn, he did not go against the Mind Flayer. No, he full on stopped, still became the bad person. And again, you can feel frustrated and feel for him to a certain degree, but that guy fucking is crazy still. And I love how they brought that to life, how the Mind Flayer came down and kind of became back to life. And again, like the eerie nature of like how Henry's obsessed with spiders and how it looks like a dead spider and then it creeped out and looked even more like a creepy spider. Really, really cool effects, really nice detail there. And again, I really like that decision to not make Henry Creel end up being a good guy and saving the day. That was not the point here. And I think what really satisfied me in this end is how Joyce gets that final lopping the head off. But even up until before we got to that point, the way that everyone again worked together to stop Vecna and to stop the Mind Flayer just again gave me that goosebumps. That final big boss battle really was satisfying to me to see as a fan. And I can't imagine the people who get to see this in theaters, who get to see that on the big screen. That is awesome for you. But I felt so engaged and on the edge of my seat during that entire thing, especially Nancy, of course, pulling out her gun, going crazy, and getting trapped into that cabin. But the way that like 11 rips him open, goes inside, starts fighting Vecna, they're fighting on the outside, and when she finally stops Vecna with the help of Will, and they're pulling out all the kids, and we get the Wheeler reunion, which was so heartfelt and touching. And Vecna's still there, and Joyce comes up, and it flashes through all these emotions, and it flashes through each person that's really much dealt with that. And she just goes and lops that motherfucker's head off. It was so satisfying as a fan, especially for Joyce to get that, who I've very much criticized what they've done with her character this season. I don't think they've done enough with Winona Ryder. But as someone who loved her character in the first 2 seasons, this was immensely satisfying to see her just get that win. Because when he started coughing, I'm like, okay, who's getting the final shot? And the second I saw her walk in and still have that axe on her back, I'm like, you're the one that's going to cut it. And I love it. I think it was a little weird, just as like a fan perspective, a little weird that Hopper like wasn't there. I understand why he wasn't, but like I kind of wish like if you had everyone there for Will's like coming out story for the most part, like why is everyone not there? Why did we not find a reason? Whatever. That's just a little thing. Man, I really love this finale though. I love that, and I really love where it come down to the performances. Again, it's a little overly drawn out. You can definitely see the comparisons to like Return of the King from Lord of the Rings, but I think like as someone who's just heavily invested themselves over the last 9 years to almost 10 years with this series, in seeing these kids grow, it's been something super special to see that. And I would rather take a more longer drawn out thing than anything else. And that's where I felt so satisfied when it did finally move over to the epilogue to see where all these characters went, to see where Steve went, to where Jonathan and Nancy went. And I really liked some of the little dialogue moments like between Jonathan and Steve, and that was like the moment that I was really needing that kind of helped figure out other things in past seasons that felt satisfying to that, to even like a lot of the kids and what they did with Max, who still might be my favorite Stranger Things character of all time. Look forward to my top 10 Stranger Things video, characters coming soon. But I really respected a lot of what they did in this season, or not this season, but the finale itself. And I think for me, that is where the satisfaction comes as a whole, from someone who loves every season, almost except this one, but loved its experience and everything with it, and especially loving these cast of characters. And while I do think that the stakes could have been a little bit higher if you would have killed off a couple other people, I will go as far to say that seeing them get out and get their ending made me happy, especially like seeing Joyce and Hopper proposing and them moving. And they deserve that. They deserve that happy ending after Hopper losing 2 daughters in his life. And Joyce, her 2 sons, and going through all this experience and all this trauma, like they deserve this. And I really like that conversation that Hopper went and had with Mike. I love Dustin's valedictorian speech. I thought that was freaking amazing and awesome. And I just continuously, I love that Lucas and Max ended up together. I love where Will ended up going. It felt so satisfying as a fan to grow up with these kids basically and see where they ended up in the end of the day. To see who ended up with who perished, and what is going on into the future. And what I really love is that Mike ended up becoming an author, a writer. And the Stranger Things like playbook that it shows at the end of the credits, which the credits were great music choices throughout this entire episode, but specifically that just like really brought some emotions to me. But like seeing that playbook, like that's Mike. Mike wrote that Stranger Things. I thoroughly loved this though, and I won't say makes up for the entire season. I'm really curious to see like go back and rewatch like Stranger Things season 5 all together instead of having to wait. But I think as a whole, the season is tinkering at my weakest, but the finale itself, top 5 episodes this show has ever produced, maybe even top 3. It genuinely is just one of the most satisfying conclusions to a series. And maybe that's just because a lot of series really don't get the most satisfying conclusion. I think there is a good 10 that you can name off the top of your head, and Stranger Things kind of joins that for me. Nothing shortly felt rushed for the most part, like in terms of the finale. I think as a whole, there are certain things I wish I would have seen from season 5 a little bit more, like more development in terms of like the Henry backstory and like how they revealed some of those things, and even certain things to giving just more characters more things to do or just more interactions. I think that is for me the biggest detriment to this season, especially coming off like 4 where all the characters weren't together, and like then you have Stranger Things 3 where all the characters are together. But Stranger Things 5, I wish they would have focused in a little bit more on that, but they had a lot to do and a lot to set up. And I think a lot of the season played off in setting it up and setting up a fantastic finale. It all led up to this. And the right side up, I will say, is the right side of this story and is a perfect finale. Again, little nitpicks here and there, but I overall love this, and I can definitely not wait to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. So make sure to leave your thoughts down there. Hit that like and subscribe button. Again, God, I'm going to miss Stranger Things. As I always do with these TV reviews, I like to kind of just vent my feelings. It's like you guys are sitting with me talking about it right afterwards. So let's debate about it in the comment section. But of course, until next time, stay classy.